Hello and welcome. This is Georgina. Georgina's a naturopath and a holistic sleep consultant. And Georgina has contributed to a couple of other modules talking about pregnancy sleep and also about newborn sleep. And today she's going to talk to you about toddler sleep. And I absolutely love Georgina's holistic approach, and she's got some amazing tips. And also we will be able to provide all her contact information if you need to have a consult with her, or you can follow her socials and get some info that way. So I will hand over to Georgina for her to run through the toddler sleep tips. And also tell us your story too, for anyone that hasn't seen you before in the modules.
Yeah. So my name is Georgina Windebank. I'm from the Holistic Sleep Project. I am a qualified naturopath, and I'm also a holistic sleep consultant. So my interest in sleep really came from my own terrible sleep. I'm quite a light sleeper and I wake a lot. So it's always been a bit of an issue of mine. And then when I was pregnant, I actually lost my mother during pregnancy. So that for me really was the trigger for me to think, how am I going to get through this? Everyone tells me that you're really, really tired and babies don't sleep, newborns don't sleep. How am I going to get through this when I'm such a terrible sleeper? So that really kind of sparked me to think about how I could approach his sleep and what I was going to do in those early stages to be able to, handle my anxiety about my own sleep and also my child's, biologically his need for good sleep, which all babies, need a certain amount of sleep and quality age appropriate sleep. So I found a holistic course, which is really how I live my life, and with that naturopathic background, that's what I wanted to do. I knew that it was more than just a routines, and I found that course in the US and studied that for a year. So the Holistic Sleep Project was born. I guess my passion around sleep, I love working out. It's a bit of a puzzle because there's so many factors that contribute to child's sleep, and often it's seen as just one component or a couple of components, but there are so many things that contribute to it. I love looking at particular topics like early rising, because 95% of the time it can be resolved. So that's why I like that one, but it's a really interesting one that, I can figure out, and dropping naps from 3 naps to 2 naps to 1 naps to nap.
Yeah, that can be such
not
a
dropping,
tricky,
but 3 naps, 2 naps, 1
time
naps,
for
no naps.
that when they're dropping naps, because it's like, and then they just get super grumpy because they're not quite ready to drop that nap completely, or they'll be grumpy for a few days and then have a really big nap, or so that's an awesome thing to
help. Incredibly difficult, and there has to be a bit of a process around it. So that's one of my I love that little component of it as well. But I look at pregnancy sleep, newborn sleep and toddler sleep, and awesome. That's my passion.
Great. So today we're going to run through some of your tips for toddler sleep. So having that holistic approach is so amazing, and I've loved all your tips for all the other stages as well. So I'll throw over to you for your toddler sleeping tips.
Thank you. So unlike, I guess, newborn sleep particularly, which is really biologically driven, I think with toddler sleep, it's much more about behaviour. It's much more about the patterns that we may have created. Yes, it's about environment, but it's more kind of emotion. It's more emotional. So what I find, I've got 5 or 6 key tips, is things start to change for little ones when one of the scenarios is they go into childcare, or they go and spend more time with their grandparents. So they're away from their parents more. So this is where I look at the emotional well-being. When I look at my approach, I should have said, if I haven't already said, I look at the physical component, developmentally, how they're going. So I look at that component of a child's sleep. I look at the nutritional factors of the mum and the baby. I look at the emotional well-being of the mother, the baby, and the whole family unit. And I also look at the environment, and I definitely look at routine and with the sleep environment. So when it comes to toddler sleep, them going outside the home a bit more, like a childcare scenario, often their sleep starts to just fall apart a bit. And that's because they're missing their mum and dad. They used to spend much more time with them, and maybe at a year or 2 years or 2.5 or whatever it is, they're starting to be outside the home more. So that's when I find that sleep can really fall apart. So my tip around that is to really, once you want to do that gradually, and they might have orientation and that kind of thing to go into that environment, but to really, really reconnect with that child when they get home. So for me, I sent my little one to more of like a family daycare scenario. one day, and then gradually built up to 2 days. Now, we had a huge drive home. It was like 45-minute drive, sometimes an hour. So I would spend that time talking to him, whether he wanted to talk or not talk. How was your day? Who was there? Talking about my day, talking about the things in the environment. So really reconnecting with him. So by the time we got home, then it was time for dinner, your books and all that kind of thing. So for other parents, try and talk to them on the way home, or reconnect by reading books, really one-on-one time. I can understand it can be a real rush sometimes when they come home from childcare or a care environment, and then you want to get them to bed. But if you don't reconnect and then you put that child down, they haven't told you about their day. They haven't reconnected with you, and they miss you. So that is my real tip around the emotional side of toddler sleep, is to really reconnect and really ease into that process if they are starting to spend time away from you.
Yeah. And what age are you sort of talking about here? Like after 12 months? Is that what you would say?
Yeah. So I consider 12 months sort of on, so 12, I guess, to 4. Yeah. I specialise so I do pregnancy, newborn, and toddlers to 3.
Yeah.
So I specialise up to 3.
Okay.
So yeah, but a toddler is considered 12 months.
Okay, great. Just checking.
Now, so I've got some key other things here which really come up often, and that is that parents move their little ones to big beds too quickly. Yeah. So often this will happen because, yes, maybe there's another baby coming, but also there is some sort of underlying sleep issue happening. They're not sleeping for whatever reason. They're having trouble getting to sleep. There's tantrums, whatever's happening. So they think, oh, let's just try this. That is not a great idea, because what it actually does is create a whole new set of problems. But up until 3 is when I recommend putting them into a new bed. It could be 3.5, depending on when you think is a good time, but also making sure there's nothing else major going on. If you're toilet training or putting them in a big bed or dropping naps or whatever you're doing, never do it when something else is going on. Don't do it when you're moving house. Don't do it when you started a new job. Don't do it at the beginning of childcare. Don't do it when anything else is going on in their life that is a huge, major shift. So with the big bed toddler scenario, so wait until they're 3, and that is because they don't have the maturity and they don't have the impulse control to stay in their big bed. So that's the reason why. So I guess my tip around that,
developmental thing in the brain chemistry, like they're just not ready for that. Yeah,
that's exactly right. And those bars, it's like their little safe haven, and then you remove the bars and it's a really strange feel. It can be a really strange feeling for them, but developmentally they're just not mature enough to cope with it. And I see a lot of sleep things kind of happen at that time where and there is a transition and there is a process around that too, and I can work with your clients if they're at that time as well.
Yeah.
But I just want to kind of get the message out there that don't do it before 3. If you do have a newborn coming, then I would be, and they obviously need the cot, and that's your decision, borrow another one, or put the newborn in a bassinet, keep your toddler in the cot, and hopefully that'll get you through to the point where the toddler's ready to go into a big bed, and then you've got the baby going into the cot. So there are many different ways that you can kind of navigate that depending on your own individual family.
And obviously if someone had a consult with you, sorry, you're breaking up. I think you're breaking up a little bit. I don't know if it's my Wi-Fi or yours, but I was just asking a question about if you were doing an individual consult with a family, you would be able to really help them through that, and how
Absolutely.
you would go about that. Yeah. So okay.
Yeah. So my approach is really looking at the individual. So some people are in, they don't have another room. So sometimes the baby might be going to the room with the toddler. Sometimes you might live with grandparents. Sometimes you might be going back to work a little bit earlier, I don't know, whatever. So there's all sorts of scenarios that I work with. And the whole point is that I take that into account. There is no one size fits all for any child or any family. We do the best with what the scenario is presented to me, and we work together. I don't, kind of say what we're going to do. It's a team effort, and I need the parents to really be on board. I'm not the kind of sleep consultant that goes to someone's house and shushes that baby, or that helps that toddler through that scenario. I'm essentially a sleep coach. So I'm directing people and parents and helping them and giving them the skills that they need in order to then do that for their child, because when I'm taken away and I finish my role, I want them to be able to carry on that work for the next sleep challenge, because there's always sleep challenge. It's not just one thing.
Yeah.
And I want them to have the confidence and the skills to do that. So I am helping them through that scenario if that's what they come to me for. And then hopefully I've given them some skills that they can use for the next thing, and so on.
Yeah, awesome.
One of the other things that parents do quite a bit too is they drop the nap too early. So let's say that they're down to one nap, which my little one is. I'm right in this space right now. And then they think, they're resisting that nap, so they don't need that nap anymore. But it's all about timing. So let's say your child's getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning. They're resisting their daytime nap. So let's say they're sort of 2.5, 3, wherever they are, that they're on the one nap. But they're absolutely a mess by 4 o'clock. So that's where you need to shift that morning wake time earlier. So you need to wake them up. So that could be waking them up at 7. Then you might get in your day nap, which will be quite short. So if they're in that space where they're dropping it, so my son is now alternating. He's doing no nap, and then he's doing an hour. And so he's alternating days, and he's almost 3. So he's right in that space where he's dropping it. But I have to wake him at 7 to ensure that he'll do a nap. And that'll get me to one of my other key tips about getting a nap at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a really important point, is don't immediately drop the nap just because they're resisting it. Again, it's about timing, and it's about total sleep time, and it's about awake times. They need a significant amount of awake times for a toddler to get a nap. It's actually quite amazing. I'm always amazed how long that they can stay up.
Yeah.
So again, a group of people that I would help, clients and mums that I would help, is those kind of people that are in that space where they think that they need to drop a nap, but the child, in terms of their behaviour and mood, they're not coping. Yes. So I often get hired for dropping from 3 naps to 2 naps, or 2 naps to 1 nap, or 1 nap to 0, because there's definitely a process and there's lots of different factors that can come into play. So don't drop it too early.
And it makes so much sense. And some toddlers will be able to transition themselves, whereas other ones will clearly be suffering from not having that nap. And that's going to present in that behavioural and like that they're getting super tired or overtired, or, like that emotional components or behavioural components. That's what mums are going to see, right?
Yes. And watching a child who's overtired, like I go to the supermarket and I see a child, like a toddler at 5 o'clock, getting really distressed. And I think, oh, what are you doing? That child needs to be home getting ready for bed. It's I can spot it a mile away. I see an overtired child.
So you can certainly help mums to get through those stages. That's an awesome thing.
Absolutely.
To do. So my kids are older, but I remember those stages, and it was a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, my drop from 2 to 1 was a nightmare. I didn't. Yeah, because you want to move it at a specific speed. You want to cut naps every. There's a whole kind of process around it, and I didn't do it as best as I should have. Good learning for me, even in my profession.
Yeah, sure.
So eating is also important for toddlers. So oftentimes toddlers are sent to a care scenario, or even in their home, that they don't eat a good breakfast. Now, that can set up for really not great behaviour as well, where they're hungry and they could be tired. We always want to make sure that we've given, so the breakfast for a toddler is the biggest meal of the day, and then a smaller lunch, and then often a smaller dinner. It may not necessarily be that way, but that's often the case. So we really want to make sure they're having a really great breakfast with quality protein, as is a particular part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that means you might have to give yourself some more time. Don't rush them. Like if they're sleeping till 8 and then you need to be up by 8:30, that is just not enough time for a toddler to wake up. And wake up grumpy sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
Wake up grumpy, take your time. They need to get dressed. They're a bit slower. They don't necessarily work on our clocks. And then they need to be ready. They don't immediately want to eat. They kind of want to go and play for a few moments, and then they might want to eat. So we need to make sure that we really are aware of their eating patterns. And then they snack a lot. So they may not have big meals. They snack a lot. So you always have to take food with you. I've often seen both in the newborns, when babies are starting solids and the mother hasn't prepared and taken that with them, but also the toddlers, I forgot the food today. You just can't with a toddler. You want to make sure that you've always got nuts if they can eat nuts, and you know, protein balls and fruit, and you want to always have heaps of snacks.
Healthy snacks, got to. I remember those times. It's like, can't go anywhere without a snack, because it's like definitely required.
Yes, and that affects their behaviour and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now, environment is also key here as well. So they are sensitive to their environment, maybe not so much as a newborn, but definitely they are. So white noise is still applicable for toddlers because we're trying to block out the noises of the house or the outside environment, and there is no dependency. Often people think, oh, they're going to get too dependent on white noise. It's a positive sleep cue. There is no dependence. They're probably one day when they're a bit older tell you they don't want it anymore, but there is, and they can actually choose it. So I've got a machine with, you know, ocean sounds and rainforests and all that sort of stuff, and my toddler can choose that, so that, you know, empowers him that he's getting the noise that he wants for the night. And also their favourite soft toy. Now, at about 7 months, I usually recommend bringing in a comforter. But by a toddler age, they might have their favourite toy, as long as it's a safe. I always look at the safety, so make sure it doesn't have marble eyes. And I kind of get the horrors about something that can happen in the bed. So making sure it's a safe toy and not too many toys. You know, especially newborns is another case where we absolutely don't have anything in the bed except for a comforter at 7 months. But as a toddler, you still need to be, you know, reasonable about it and not have
millions of
hundreds and hundreds of
things.
because they would like that.
My son is 18. He's still got his special teddy that he got at around that age. I think he was around 7 or 8 months or something, and he was his name was Godfrey, and he was the sleep teddy, and we lost him a couple of times, and I've got a couple of funny stories about how we got him back. But you know, he was so crucial to our sleeping and to our naps. And our neighbours actually had one that was the same but bigger, but at the same feel, and a couple of times I had to run over to the neighbours to borrow that teddy to get him to sleep because it felt the same. And funny, but that works so well.
Mine has had, it's such an important thing for them. It's a real attachment and safety thing, and this is what sleep is about. It's about safety. The child has to feel safe in order to go to sleep. So my child's had comforters. I had 3 because I wanted one for the pram, one for the cot, one for the pram, one for the cot, one for the car. And now that he's a bit older, he sleeps with all 3 because they're all safe sleeping toys. But he has names for them and all this kind of thing. But he's had those since he was a baby.
I should have had 3. I should have had backup ones, because those times when I couldn't find it would be desperate. Where's Godfrey? For God's sake, we need Godfrey. We can't go to bed. But yeah, that's a good have backup.
And also I washed, because these are washable ones.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, these are washable. So I might have one in the wash, and he'll consistently ask me for that one. But at least I've got the other 2.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
what my life has become. So with environment, when you want to make sure that you've got your white noise, they can still be in sleeping bags and sleep suits, and I recommend that until at least kind of 3, or until they're in a big bed. So that's another kind of sleep cue, which I talk about, a positive sleep cue, and it's obviously for warmth as well. So that's some of the environment. And then the last thing is really making sure that they have enough exercise and stimulation in order to sleep. So, and this is where I guess technology comes in. This is a bit of a passion of mine, that toddlers don't have too much technology, and they don't need it. So this can affect many, many different parts that you and I know about development or mood, behavior, but it also can affect their sleep. So for a toddler, I mean, I think they say no devices before 2, and then there's a recommendation for the amount that you choose to do. But I mean, half an hour is kind of 20 minutes is kind of okay, I think, for a 2 to sort of 3-year-old, but you don't want to be doing it before bed or before sleep. And I've even heard some clients who've given iPads or iPhones in the cot sort of to relax them. Well, it's actually going to do the opposite, because it affects the melatonin, therefore
it's the blue light, isn't it? And the way it impacts the melatonin in the brain. So the melatonin is the sleep hormone. So we need to be able to get that stimulated. And one of the big stimulus for that is light and daylight during the day. And then that's interesting what you said earlier about with having that dark for sleep, because that's what so the production of it, but then it comes up at night. So the stimulation of light in the mornings, and then that creates the melatonin for at night, right? So the blue light blocks that.
That's right, and that's why we often suggest getting out into daylight in the morning or before, if they're still having a day nap before that. So getting out, having that light exposure, and also running them ragged. I've noticed with what's happening obviously in our society at the moment, my little one's not getting as much exercise, and I've heard this from a lot of people, and I think that's part of the reason why he's actually dropping the nap. He may not actually be dropping it, it's just that he's not getting as much activity and stimulation from, you know, the care environment that he normally goes to.
Yeah.
And for other children who are in daycare, they're not getting that stimulation. So we have to try and this is on a normal day, whether what's going on in the world is the case or not, we need to make sure that they're getting lots of stimulation, you know, learning, outdoor climbing, parks, whatever it is, so that they're tired enough to not only nap during the day, but nap at night.
Yeah.
So putting them in front of a device is not only detrimental for a few reasons, it also isn't stimulating. It's not physically, they're not wearing themselves out.
Yeah.
So that's really important to consider, because, and the thing is, once you give them a device, the more that they will ask for it.
Yeah.
So you kind of want to restrict that early on, so it doesn't get out of hand.
Yeah. Yeah. It's full. That's like, we could do a whole nother. So
yeah, I know.
When I'd start the podcast, we'll definitely do one on that.
Yeah.
It's just so full on. And even that developmental stuff, you know, like I saw some research about eyesight and that kind of development, that neural development connected with eyesight, because they're not looking at the horizon, they're looking close, and how that changes brain development and those kind of things. So there's a lot of amazing research about that, but
there's a lot.
Talk about that.
But just be aware of that. And I think with toddlers, I guess the key message is really connection.
Yeah,
that's I mean, there's many key messages, not dropping naps, not putting them in the cot too early, that kind of stuff, but connect, because they're emotional little ones, and I think often we have quite a high expectation that they can handle change. They can handle change in sleep environments. They can handle changes in life. These things affect them so profoundly. You know, if there's a change in the household, is a change that you're out of the house more because you're working more as they get older, these things really affect them, and they need to feel safe, as I said, to sleep well. So
yeah,
that's the key message there.
Such amazing tips. I love it. Thank you so much. And thanks so much
for
your contribution. And anyone that needs to get in touch with you will have all your contact details anyway. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the podcast.
I'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Bye.